There are so many families who've lost loved ones in the course of what's played out in the weekend. And now joining us on India Today, we've got Ron B. Mandelbaum. Now, Ron has had a very tragic last few days. He's lost his brother-in-law, who was a mayor in a local town, Ophir Lipstein. He's lost his mother-in-law, who is 80 years old, plus several of his nephews who've been gunned down. So first of all, Ron, let me begin by expressing my condolences and expressing how very sorry I am for your loss. You've lost your brother-in-law and several other family members, yes?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that we have a few survivors in our house in the center of Israel, and it's heartbreaking. I can't breathe. It's so heartbreaking. My mother-in-law, she was 82 years old. She was murdered by Nazis. I can't describe them other than that, who infiltrated Israel in a kibbutz. It's a village next to the border where they live peacefully, just civilians, and they murdered everybody who they could see. They have murdered her, an 82 years old lady, just doing her daily walk in the morning. They murdered Ophir, the regional council president of this part of the Negev, and he was my brother-in-law. They murdered my other brother-in-law's son, Neta, 20 years old, 21 years old. And we have one more nephew that is gone missing. We know that he was wounded, and we had telephone contact with him. My daughter is a doctor, is a medical doctor. She told him what to do. He was wounded, and after about two hours, he didn't have any battery left. And when the military evacuated the Hamas, ISIS murderers from the kibbutz, they didn't find him anymore in his room. So he's gone missing. We don't know where he is. Now imagine that it took about 27 hours for these people who are now in my house to get out of this terrible things that looks like a Holocaust. I am a son of survivors from the Holocaust, and I remember the stories they told me when I was a young boy. They tried to spare those stories from me, but every now and then, it would it was so hard. And now in my country, in my military, in my kibbutz, in my house, I have survivors. Genocide. I can't breathe. I'm sorry. I'm overwhelmed.
I'm so sorry.
My heart is in pieces. Our family is broken. It's like three branches of the same family. The great mother, our mother-in-law, Bilha, she was everything for us. Ever since my parents are gone, she was the mother of everyone. I don't know if we're going to get up as a family. We are going to survive as a nation. We're going to win, and we are going to teach those bastards a lesson that we'll never forget. But that's not relevant for us anymore. We are broken. Our family's shattered.
I can't feel the pain that you do. It's just I'm out of words completely from what you've told us. This is a very, very difficult time for you, Ron. I understand that. And, it's brave of you to come out and even speak right now about what happened to you and your family. But just for us to understand, the level of brutality here, this happened while your family members, your mother-in-law, your brother-in-law, they were all inside their homes, and these terrorists barged in and killed them.
They were living in three different houses in the kibbutz. Bilha and her husband, my father-in-law, Amos, are living in one house. And Vered and Ophir are living, the deceased Ophir, the murdered Ophir, are living in one house with their four sons. One of them was in a kibbutz. It's a different way of living. When you turn 18, you get your own room away from your parents. Yep. So he was living in his in his own room that is a little to the west of those. So we had three sites of murder.
And he's your nephew you're referring to, who's still missing. When was the last time you managed to speak to him, Ron? And I'm sure all of you are extremely concerned right now about his whereabouts. But how were you able to really put out that information or seek any details about his whereabouts? Are you concerned that maybe he's been abducted and could be in Gaza?
There's not much we can do. There's not much we can do. We are putting our faith in the authorities. If he's been kidnapped to Gaza, what can we do? We just gave his name to the authorities, all his details, everything that we know about him, pictures, identity card, DNA. There's not much we can do. I can't go into Gaza and get him. I would, but it would be futile.
But Ron, were these targeted killings? Can you explain to us what really was that like? I know you want to also make another point.
Imagine for a minute that on top of all the losses we have a missing person right now, and just imagine his mother had lost her husband, she had lost her mother, her nephew, and now she is waiting eagerly for a missing son. It's unbearable. It shouldn't happen. Things like that cannot happen. It's a nightmare.
Heartbreaking to hear what you're telling us, and the only thing we can honestly do is offer our condolences, tell you how sorry we are. But the question that I was asking earlier, Ron, are these targeted killings? Do you believe that your family was zeroed in upon and targeted by these terrorists in any manner? When 3 homes of your family members were closed upon, when terrorists entered these houses and killed everyone inside, do you think that they were targeted?
They don't target anyone. They target the Jewish people. They are Nazis, and they wanted to execute a genocide. Read their the manifest. The Manifest of Hamas is to kill every Jew who lives in the land of Israel. That's genocide. They are criminals, and they should be judged by the international community as war criminals. The world should intervene. It's not a thing for Israel to do.
I can understand where your emotion comes from. When you feel anger, you feel pain, you feel a sense of hopelessness, essentially. And again, I've said this innumerable number of times in our conversation, Ron, but again, please go ahead and accept our condolences. We're very, very sorry for your loss, for your family, and I know that this is an extremely difficult time for all of you. There are so many countless people like Ron who've suffered in the course of what's happened in the last few days, who've lost their family members, and as he says, we don't even have bodies right now to bury, to say goodbye to any of our loved ones or family members. And that's the tragedy of war. That's the tragedy of this conflict that we're currently witnessing.